If you've been following Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, you already know how wild things have gotten. Yuji was teased, Mahito appeared out of nowhere, and then the story took a turn nobody was ready for. Chapters 7 and 8 aren't just shock moments, they completely reshape Modulo's world. From Yuka's devastating reveal, to the tragic origin of Maru and Cross, and the Simurian history that explains why this conflict even exists. So if you missed these chapters, or want to understand what they really mean, today I'm breaking down chapters 7 and 8, and why they matter more than you might think. Chapter 7 opens with Masaki Takeda, bloodied and barely standing, fleeing into an alley. Before he can escape, Usami appears behind him. Don't move. Cursed speech activates instantly, freezing Masaki in place. The fight ends in a single blow, and Usami tells Mino to handle the rest. Meanwhile, Cross confronts Tsurugi, furious about what he said earlier. "What did you mean by neighbors?" Tsurugi replies. "What's wrong? Don't like what I said? You guys brought it up first." He repeats what Maru had told him. A neighbor means someone who understands why the things you treasure are so important. Cross realizes Maru said those words to Tsurugi and erupts in anger. To him, humans never treated Samrians as neighbors, only as dangerous refugees. Peace enforced by treaties is an understanding, and someone who never acknowledged your worth was never a neighbor at all. Later, Usami meets Cross as Maru lies unconscious. Cross politely but firmly insists on taking Maru to the mothership for treatment. Usami suggests treating him on Earth to avoid complications, but Cross refuses. As Maru is transported, Cross quietly removes his eye patch, saying he'll be borrowing it. Then the scene ends. And on the other side, a stitched face appears upside down. It's Mahito. He looks at Tsurugi and mutters, "What's all this? I thought you were him." Mahito was supposed to be gone, erased, but his power was over souls, and somehow, he lingered, waiting. Perhaps for Yuji, but instead, Tsurugi arrived. Mahito reaches into his mind, sensing something familiar, something unbreakable. Back in the waking world, Tsurugi stirs, his eyes open to a hospital ceiling. At his side stands Maru, but it's actually Cross in disguise, observing humanity from within. Tsurugi apologizes for doubting him. Those words hit Cross hard. No Samrian had ever been trusted like that. Yuka arrives with her usual energy, greeting Maru with a teasing smile. Well, if it isn't the MVP. Her cheerful tone hides something deeper. Tsurugi asks Yuka about her medical results. She laughs it off, saying she's fine, but Cross immediately notices that something feels off. The next day, Yuka invites everyone to an amusement park, a place Maru always wanted to visit. Still disguised as Maru, Cross reluctantly joins Yuka, Tsurugi, and Mino. The group spends the day at the park, laughing, riding attractions, but Cross remains distant, unable to enjoy it the way Maru would. During the outing, a young boy suddenly starts crying after getting separated from his mother. Tsurugi and Mino head to the lost child desk, leaving Cross and Yuka behind to watch over him. Yuka gently tries to comfort the boy, but instead of calming down, he starts crying even harder. That's when Cross loses his patience and snaps at him. Of course, that only makes things worse. Annoyed, Cross suddenly starts doing acrobatics right there on the spot. The boy stops crying almost instantly, and people nearby break into applause. Not wanting to be outdone, Yuka smirks and casually copies Cross's acrobatics, saying, "Hey, I can do that too, so don't get cocky." Cross looks at her with clear annoyance, thinking to himself, what is her problem? Moments later, the boy's mother finally returns. Before leaving, the child quietly hands his Halloween balloon to Cross as a small gesture of thanks. Cross looks down at it, confused, and mutters, "Halloween?" Yuka notices and explains, it's a holiday with Christian roots, but originally it came from a completely different religion. As they talk, their conversation turns to religion. Cross seems genuinely curious. He wonders if Christianity is the main belief Earthlings follow. Yuka explains that it's actually only a minority, maybe 20 to 30% of the world at most. When Cross points out how confusing Japanese beliefs seem, Yuka agrees. She explains that in Japan, people mainly follow Buddhism, Confucianism, and Shinto, but at the same time, they've casually adopted many holidays from other religions, mostly in a commercial way. Hearing all that, Cross simply asks her if she believes in a god at all. Yuka admits she's not really sure, but personally, she doesn't believe in one. Then, almost casually, she turns the question back on him. "What about you, Cross?" Cross looks at her, stunned. Yuka casually points out that it was obvious. Maybe Tsurugi didn't notice, and even if he did, she doubts he would say anything. After a brief silence, Cross admits that Samurians do have a god. He then asks Yuka if she has ever heard the story about people being forced to trample on sacred tablets. Yuka says no, and explains that long ago, Christianity was forbidden in Japan. To expose believers, authorities used tablets depicting Christ and ordered people to step on them. Those who refused were identified as Christians. Yuka admits she never really understood why people would refuse to step on an image, even when their lives were on the line. That's when Cross responds with a chilling comparison. He asks her to imagine stepping on something alive, not a picture, but a living being. Yuka is stunned. She realizes she had never looked at the situation from that perspective. Cross accuses humans of trampling Samurian lives and culture. Stealing may be wrong, but when everything is taken from you, the urge to take it back never disappears, and humans should be prepared for that. Yuka is shaken. In her mind, a single thought crosses her head. Did he just declare war on us? Out loud, she brushes it off, saying she'll pretend she didn't hear that. Then, almost deliberately, she tells him the timing is perfect and asks him to come with her somewhere the next day, somewhere that might change his mind. When Cross asks where, Yuka simply replies, she wants a second opinion. The scene shifts to Kyoto General Medical Hospital. Yuka sits quietly as the doctor explains her reports. We briefly see the scans. The problem is in her brain. Later, by the river, Yuka finally speaks. She admits she barely understood what the doctor said. She's never even heard of this illness before. Cross asks if it's cancer. He's heard it's common among Earthlings. Yuka isn't sure. She wonders if a malignant tumor is even different from cancer. The real issue, she says, is that it's in her brain. Those headaches she kept ignoring, they weren't normal. She laughs it off awkwardly. 6 months to live is pretty harsh. She jokes it sounds like a low-budget drama. If they were going to kill her off, the least they could do was send a handsome guy rushing to her bedside. Cross asks why she brought him along. Yuka answers honestly, she hates going alone, and she doesn't want anyone to pity her. That's when Cross decides to stop holding back. He tells her bluntly that her heart already died the moment she heard the diagnosis. Nothing will feel the same anymore. Food, music, joy, hatred will take its place. Yuka quietly asks him if that's how it is for him. Cross answers without hesitation, yes, his future was stolen too. Yuka then asks the real question, so what now? Do you keep stealing from people who've already lost everything? That's when Cross snaps. He tells her not to compare herself to the Simurians. What they suffered wasn't an illness or an unfortunate accident, it was a man-made disaster. Yuka doesn't back down. She admits she will die, but Cross still has time. It's okay to be angry, it's okay not to forget, but humans aren't his enemies. Cross dismisses her words as idealistic nonsense. He says she's standing safely on the opposite shore, pretending to understand his pain, and questions how she expects him to accept such self-righteous arguments. Then he pauses. No, she's not on the opposite shore anymore. Yuka says it out loud. When you talk about coexistence, what you really mean is living here on Earth without causing any trouble, right? That's when Cross completely snaps. He shouts, asking how long they're supposed to restrain themselves for Earthlings. Years? Decades? If that's their future, he'd rather keep stealing. Yuka asks one final question. How long will you keep stealing? Cross freezes. He has no answer. Yuka continues, saying that hating people and taking from them is easy, and that's exactly why it turns into an endless cycle. She looks at him and says, let's put an end to all of that, Cross. And with that, the chapter closes in silence, her words hanging heavily in the air. Chapter 8 opens with a powerful flashback, one that finally reveals the origin of the Simurians, and the tragedy that shaped Maru and Cross. We're taken to the Simurian homeland, a barren wasteland where the Remelians, the lowest status tribe, are forced to live. This is where Maru and Cross grew up. Their childhood was nothing but suffering. Their own government destroyed their village. Their parents died resisting, crushed beneath their collapsing home. In his final moments, their father clutched an ordinary stone as if it were precious, something Cross never understood. Orphaned, starving, and alone, the twins survived by stealing, until they were finally caught and thrown into a jail cell. A Samrian named Dura arrives, urged by an elder to take responsibility for the boys. Reluctantly, he agrees, but the moment he opens the cell, Maru and Cross immediately attack him. Dura dodges effortlessly and knocks both boys away with a single, casual strike. But instead of punishing them, he laughs. Their spirit amuses him, so he hires them to help him with a massive project, building a canal. Dura takes them to the worksite, a vast stretch of land being excavated by hand. He assigns them simple tasks, filling cages with smaller rocks, clearing debris, and never touching the stones stacked above the pit. Meanwhile, Dura digs at an unbelievable speed, his strength completely overwhelming the boys. Maru eventually asks, "Why are we building this canal?" Dura explains, "It will shorten trade routes between Deskunte and Shama. It will benefit both lands. It will bring cleaner water to Remelian villages. It will make their dried farmlands fertile again. And it will show Deskunte that Remelians want peace." But Cross lashes out, "Why should we, the Remelians, build something for the same Deskunte people who destroyed our home and killed our parents?" Dura answers calmly, The canal was planned long ago, but construction stopped because of the Kalians, a mysterious sacred beasts that only attack tribes other than Remelians, meaning Remelians are the only tribe that can safely build the canal. Cross calls that an excuse. Dura clarifies, "This canal is for us too. It connects two lands. It brings water back to Rumel. It brings life to dead soil. Coexistence is the only path forward." But Cross can't accept it. Hatred blinds him. The next day, Cross doesn't show up. Dura and Maru continue without him. But suddenly, they discover the entire section they dug has collapsed overnight. Maru immediately says Cross would never do this. Dura agrees. He explains that many Remelians oppose the project, and the sabotage likely came from people in the camp. We then see the real culprits, a group of Remelians mocking Dura, calling him foolish, and planning to keep destroying the canal. But that's when Cross enters their tent, saying Dura is pretty stupid, then punches their leader Osuki without hesitation. He doesn't kill them, but he does force them to respect Dura's mission. The next day, Cross returns to the worksite. Maru is overjoyed. Dura simply smiles. Soon, thanks to Jabaloma, the Council of Elders officially approves the canal project. Now the entire village joins in. Even Osuki and his group show up to help. Cross approaches them and bows, "I'm sorry, and thank you for coming." They accept. For the first time in his life, Cross begins to understand what coexistence truly means. A full decade passes. The canal is finally finished. The Remelians watch with pride as a Diskunte ship sails through the waterway for the first time. Later, Dura reveals that the Diskunte tribe wants to build a port halfway through the canal, and they're willing to pay for it. The villagers discuss, hesitate, but eventually agree. This will reopen trade, bring prosperity, strengthen peace. A celebration begins. Remelians laugh, drink, and plan for the future. Meanwhile, Cross thinks, "We lost our parents because of the policy Diskunte forced us into. Jabaloma's daughter died because of it too. Yet Jabaloma never let hatred consume him. Even while carrying unbearable grief, he chose cooperation over revenge." Cross realizes he truly respects him. Just when everything seems perfect, a Kalian, the sacred beast, kills the daughter of the Diskunte chieftain. The same species that once massacred villages has struck again. And with that tragedy, Chapter 8 of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo comes to an end. 2 chapters, 2 revelations that change everything. Mahito's presence shakes the foundations of Modulo. Whether he's a memory, an echo, or something far worse, his return is no accident. And Yuka's secret cuts even deeper. 6 months left. No one knows. Not Tsurugi, not Maru. And whether reverse cursed energy can save her remains uncertain. Together, these chapters peel back the pain, history, and cruelty of the Simurian world, and finally show us why Cross became the person he is today. Modulo isn't just expanding anymore, it's breaking. Let me know what you think about these chapters in the comments, and I'll see you in the next chapter breakdown.